Hey there, lovelies! Welcome to the introduction of my new Impasto brush set. A brush set made for artists who love texture, depth, and that classic oil paint and feel. This pack includes a total of 70 custom brushes, carefully crafted to bring rich, three-dimensional impasto effects right into your Procreate canvas. The magic of these brushes lies in its ability to add stunning depth with striking layered strokes, rather than focusing on blending colors like other kinds of brush sets. For this one, I suggest applying them in dabs and layering them in strips or patches. This is the best way to unlock the full potential of this brush. Whether you're aiming for dramatic strokes or delicate textures, this set has got you covered. Let's break it down. I have divided the brushes into two main types, the thick oil painting brushes and the textured impasto brushes. I'm going to go through each of them so we can get to know them a little better. Number 1, thick oil painting brushes. These brushes are designed to replicate the classic impasto technique, featuring bold, rich strokes that create a stunning presence on the canvas, with plenty of depth and dynamism. They're ideal for injecting drama, texture, and a vibrant artistic flair into your creations. Number 2, textured brushes. These brushes add a more vibrant and dynamic texture, making them perfect for layering, adding details, and playing around with your brush pressure. They come in two different subtypes. A. Canvas texture brushes. They create the sensation of painting on an actual canvas, featuring a delicate texture and grip that make your brushstrokes feel genuine and grounded. B. Dry brushes. These are all about texture. Scratchy, raw, and full of character. They mimic dry, dread strokes, giving a handcrafted feel to your work. Now, let's see these brushes in action. We've prepared 3 sample artworks to showcase how each brush behaves on real illustrations. You'll see the brushes applied in these 3 pieces. Watch how the impasto effects build up, from thick highlights to layered textures and crisp, dry details. Alright, I've got this lobster feast on my canvas now. You can really see how the textures are jumping out, creating a cool 3D effect. Let me show you how to achieve similar results. Let's use the Freya's Impasto 6 brush. And I'm going to size it at 40%. Then I'll change the color to this bright red-orange. For this demo, let me make another layer so I don't completely ruin the artwork while doing this. Alright, let's start with the head over here. And I'm going to do a broad stroke. One thing you have to remember is that each stroke shows up pretty clearly on the canvas, so the direction of the brush stroke has a big impact on the textures we lay out. We need to move the brush in one direction, because it impacts how the shadows and light from the thick paint interact on the canvas. For example, when we're working on the lobster head, we go horizontal to align with how it's positioned on the plate. But for the tail, we use vertical lines for each segment. If we tried a diagonal brushstroke on the tail, it would look completely different. Since the brush is already textured in this way, we'll use its features to our advantage. Going in the same direction and doing similar brush strokes makes it easier to achieve good, consistent layers that look relatively the same. It's not a hard and fast rule, of course, but it helps to maintain control over the movement of the paint across the canvas. That's pretty much what you'll need to keep in mind when you're using the Impasto brush set in your own artworks. It's pretty easy, right? You can also paint in various shapes to achieve the look you want, depending on the object. This helps create a more organic and natural flow in the painting. Okay, let's proceed with the next one. Let's create a new layer now. Then switch to the Freya's Impasto 7 brush, sized at 9%. We're going to darken the current color to a deeper red. This is how you can add some shadows to your artwork. If you're used to other mediums where you need to blend in the values seamlessly to get polished transitions of color, well, impasto brushes are made for layering rather than blending. Sure, you can still use midtones and all that, but it doesn't have to be super smooth. In fact, the beauty of Impasto is in the visible layers and textures, which is what makes it so unique. Plus, I come from some rough textures like those on a lobster shell. Even though Impasto is known for its thick, chunky paint, sometimes the overall piece can look a bit flat. Adding finer details can really enhance your artwork and give it more depth and visual appeal. Okay, I think that part is enough. Let's add another layer. Next, switch to the Freya's Impasto 2 brush, sized at 9%. This time, I'll pick a white color. This lobster needs a little bit of shine to it, don't you think? I'm going to make one thin streak near the center of the head, and then a few dots trailing up front. By adding this, it makes the lobster look shinier, like it's still a little wet from the steam. A few lines are all you really need. If you're trying this technique for the first time, it might seem a bit strange at first. You might feel like you should blend it in more, but that's not necessary. When you step back and look at it, it actually complements the rest of the paint nicely. So just a few tiny dashes in the center of each segment, all the way down to the tail. Put some on the edges of the little legs too. You don't need to put a lot since it's such a striking bright white. Not to mention, it's super opaque. Any more of this might overpower the layers underneath. Okay, I hope you kept up with me there. You should have a better idea now of how these brushes work on canvas and their intended use. So let's try to use this to draw something from scratch next. Let's select the Freya's Impasto 4 brush, sized at around 40%. For the color, let's go with this pale orange. We're going to be drawing a bagel, but we don't have a reference photo for this one. Feel free to look one up if that will help you visualize what we're going to draw. But if you're up for a challenge, follow my lead. Okay, so I need to create a circle, but instead of making one complete loop, I'll do it gradually with short strokes, overlapping each section at an angle to shape it like a bagel. We're doing it this way because this brings out a lot of the textures that I'm looking for. Besides, we can't just color drop when we're using the impasto brushes. It wouldn't be the same. So we're going to go slow and steady. Let's increase the brush size so that we can get a cleaner consistency with the brush strokes. There we go. That looks like a sliced bagel, right? Let's do a few more passive here and there for good measure. Then let's create a new layer. Choose the Freya's Impasto 7 brush and size it to 6%. We're going for this dark burnt sienna. I think a good bagel needs to be a little toasted. Let's paint a bit around the edges of it. The brush is a little too small. Let's bump it up to around 15%. We're doing short swipes on the edge with a light hand, like this. Also around the hole in the middle. Then just go around the bagel to add it on the edges, but don't completely cover it. Just have fun with it. It doesn't need to be perfect. Okay, when you're done, change the color to this orange shade. Paint in between the darker color to add more depth. It's like these areas didn't quite toast all the way. And switching to that burnt sienna to retouch some of these areas again. Then back to that orange again in a smaller brush size. Alright, now switch to the Freya's Impasto 5 brush and lower the opacity to 61%. Brush size is at around 44%. If the edges are toasted, then the rest of it should be too, right? So I'm going to use the same orange and brush this over the entire bagel. Follow the direction of the previous brush strokes, like so. I'm not really adding that much, but go ahead and add to this layer as much as you prefer. After the orange, we're back with the darker shade again. We're just going to layer this on in the same way. Just a light layer will do. Okay, so far so good. Now switch to the Freya's Impasto 15 brush, sized at around 40%. Okay, whoa, let's undo that. We're going to need a really light hand pressure for this one. We're going in the same direction of the brush strokes again. You know how when you toast bread and some of the darker areas reveal the texture of the bread, the little air pockets are more visible, right? I'm going to simplify it by brushing over the bagel with this dark sienna until we get this kind of speckled look. Change to a pale orange and do a few touches here and there. It should look something like that. What do you think? Looks pretty close to toast, right? All right, let's add a new layer. Now switch to the Freya's Impasto 6 brush, sized at around 48%. For color, let's go with this light beige. What's a bagel without some cream cheese? Let's smear some of this paint in the middle of the bread. This brush gives us a smoother texture, but is pretty close to what a spread would look like in real life. We're just going to do this one swipe at a time and build it on top of each other. Go around the circle until you filled most of the area. If you like to eat bagels, what's your favorite spread? Or what kind of toppings do you like to put on it? Okay, that looks good for breakfast now, doesn't it? But we're not done yet. All right, make sure you're in the base layer before you use the transform tool to pull the plain bagel to the side. Add a new layer. We're using the same brush at 48%. We're going for this shade of orange. I think 2 is better than 1. In this second slice, let's add a different kind of spread to it. I'm thinking maybe peanut butter? That sounds good, right? Just layer each stroke like we did with the first one. When you're done, switch to the Freya's Impasto 4 brush, sized at around 40%. We're using the lighter orange shade now. Let's add a new layer. Over on the right of the first bagel, let's paint the top half of the bagel. We're overlapping the same strokes inwards and in a circular motion to get the shape that we want. Okay, that looks good. Just a few more layers here and there. Now let's create another layer. Grab the Freya's Impasto 13 brush and size this at around 40%. Back to that bird sienna. This other half is also going to be toasted, so we're going to go around its surface to add more color to it. Just a few swipes that follow the curves of the bagel. I'm also adjusting the brush size depending on the location around the narrower areas. Shorter strokes here and there to even it out a little. I'm trying to capture the denseness of this bagel so it looks more fluffy and thick. Now switch to this orange color. Do a couple of swipes of this too over the same areas where the darker shade was painted earlier. Go around the surface with light hand pressure to carefully shape the bagel even more. Switching to a medium orange, something a little darker than the last. We're going to use this as a kind of middle tone for the other colors. Brush this over the spaces in between the two values so that we get to transition the color bit by bit. This also adds a bit more depth to it. Increase the brush size to cover a wider area. Do a few quick swipes around the bagel with light hand pressure. Alright, this time grab a pale orange color. Let's do a few swipes of this first. I think we can switch up the brush now. Change the brush to the Freya's Impasto 12 brush. Decrease the size to around 80% or so, and go around the top of the bagel in big sweeps, like so. We're just slowly building up the layers little by little so that it evens out with the rest. Okay, I think that looks good enough to eat. It's still missing something on top though. Alright then, let's create another layer. Let's go with the Freya's Impasto 26 brush at 15%. As for the color, let's use the orange we last used. On second thought, I think I'll set this color to be a bit darker, almost a deep brown. I want to add some black thieves on top to complete the look. We're just going to do some really short dashes all over the surface. They look more like chocolate sprinkles, but these are seeds. This shape doesn't need to be perfect, okay? Scatter them until they're evenly spaced. Then switch to a really pale orange. White seeds next. Do the same thing and scatter them around. Then go for the medium orange to add a few more seeds here and there. Great! Now go to Layers and duplicate this layer. Press Adjustments to go to Hue, Saturation, Brightness. Set the saturation and brightness to a really low setting until they all turn black. After that, move this layer below the original sieve layer, and then drag the duplicate to move it outwards to create the shadows. Select the Gaussian blur in Adjustments and set it at around 4%. Set the opacity at 41%. Nice! Let's add shadow to the bagel too. Okay, so create a new layer above the 5th layer and enable clipping mask. Switch to the Freya's Impasto 25 brush. Back to the dark orange-brown color. Brush over this area below with light hand pressure still. We don't want it so dark that it looks like it spent way too long in the toaster. Just some light touches all around the shape of the bagel, and the texture of the brush will do the rest. Lower the brush size to reach the narrower areas. Awesome! Now it's the perfect golden brown. Perfect for a nice, delicious breakfast or snack. I think we could add something else to this. How about a butter knife on the side that was used to spread the cream? Okay, let's switch to the Freya's Impasto 4 brush and size it at 12%. Grab the off-white color. On the left corner over here, draw one long line and circle it back. It kind of looks like the long end of a baseball bat. Then just color that in. Then add a shorter section on top, almost the same shape. And at the very end, add a small circle. After that, increase brush size to 27% and cream it up by doing larger strokes so that the paint looks more even. Okay, that should be good. Let's rotate that a bit and move it closer to the bagels. Okay, great. Let's change the color to this gray and lower the brush size to 7%. Then let's set the brush opacity at 82%. Draw over the sharper edge of the knife first, then wrap around the other side as well. We're going to do the same detailing work on the handle too. We don't have to outline the whole thing, just enough so that the shadows give it dimension. Okay, let's use a darker gray now. We're using the Freya's Impasto 8 brush and sizing it at 6%. Let's add a bit more sharpness to it by defining the edges and tip. We're just going to frame the whole knife with disconnected lines, like this. Increase the brush size for the wider areas and on the handle. Now we're using the off-white for highlight. Draw a straight line going up the blade and on the handle as well. Back to that lighter gray to keep defining the shape of the knife and give it more depth. Okay, that looks nice. I'm happy with that. Next, let's grab the Freya's Impasto 7 brush. Now press and hold the modify button, the square in the middle of the bars here to enable the eyedropper. Get the lightest shade from the spread on the bagel. And don't forget to do this in a new layer. Increase the brush size to 31%. Then use this thick paint and slather it on the tip of the knife. Make it look as natural as possible. Okay, let's switch to the Freya's Impasto 6 brush, sized at 33%. Then just add another layer on the first smear, like that. And that's it. This is our study of delicious bagels using thicker impasto brushes. I think it looks pretty good. What do you think? All right, nice job on those bagels. Let's do one more drawing as our final practice session. Our third one will be a slice of an orange. Let's get to it. So I won't be using a reference for this one and will be relying on my memory of what an orange slice looks like. But feel free to grab a photo if that will make things a little easier. Select the Freya's Impasto 4 brush. Then size it at 23%. We're going for the orange color, of course. Now let's start with the orange peel by doing a half circle, then close it with a line. You don't have to draw the shape in one go, you can do it in sections, just like how I'm doing it. Then fill the inner area. Do strips of paint that overlap each other that covers the whole area. The pattern should look like sun rays that fan out, like this. This resembles the shape of the segments of the pulp. After that, switch to the white color. Reduce the brush size to 14%. Switch to the Freya's Impasto 18 brush. We're going to paint in the rind between the skin and orange pulp. We're also going to draw the veins that separate the segments inside the fruit. We're going to divide it into 4 even parts, and at the very center, try to pile a bit more there to represent the core. Next, just try to clean it up a bit before switching to a lighter shade of orange. Layer this one on top of the orange skin. Don't cover the previous color. Then, when we reach the segmented parts, we're going to change to a different shade of orange. Let's try a bit of that in the corners so we can see how that looks. Maybe we can use a different brush for this part. Change to the Freya's Impasto 24 brush at 13%. Okay, we could just continue painting on the corners of these inverted triangles like so. Put some on the skin too, on the outermost edge, to give it depth. Fix up the segments by softly rounding out the sharper corners and smoothing out the rougher areas. As I've said before, we don't have to do this perfectly. I want you guys to have fun while we're doing this exercise, so that you can get used to how the impasto brushes behave and how best to build the layers with them. We're going to switch back to the lighter orange to add more color to some areas that need more attention. Alright, let's just move this over to the corner here so that we can work on something else. Okay, we're going to need another layer. Then drag this below layer 1. Same brush, but we're changing to the lighter orange we used previously. Let's make a whole orange beside the slice. Naturally, we're going to draw a circle. Then increase the brush size to 36% to fill in the shape. Keep your brush strokes curved according to the shape and direction. So since we started at the left, the curve should lean to the left and vice versa. As you reach the center, the line will gradually straighten. Change the color to this orange. Add this to the right side of the orange in the same curved pattern. Stop when you've reached, I'd say, maybe 1/3 of the way. Change to the Freya's Impasto 25 brush. We're going to add this to the other side. Max out the brush size, and then with a light hand, brush over the same area and blend it in with the right side. Do the same curved motion to paint until you cover the remaining area. Pick up the darker orange so that you can blend the color in too. Brush it lightly at the bottom so that the texture pops out. Lower the brush size to 34%. Color the bottom and the edges with the darker shade and even it out. Do some circular motions around the fruit to get these streaks of orange paint all around it. I think it will be easier to do the next layers with a bigger brush size, so just adjust as needed. Great! Now grab that pale orange. The area on the left and center will be the lighter areas, so we're going to brush the color over that. After that, we're going to grab a medium green color with a hint of yellow on it. Choose the Freya's Impasto 38 brush. I think you can guess what the green is for, right? So at the tip of the orange, let's make a leaf shape. Then with a darker shade, we're going to add some shadow. Just a quick swipe, like that. Then finally, grab the white for some highlights. Just brush that on the lighter areas of the orange. And a few dashes on 2 segments of the orange slice. Done! Just a very quick drawing of an orange. Awesome work, everyone! I hope these practice sessions have helped you become more familiar with using the new brush set and have picked up some new tricks along the way. Whether you're illustrating food, still life, portraits, or abstracts, this Impasto brush set gives you the tools to create rich, textured artwork that looks and feels like traditional oil painting. I'm really excited to see what you all create with this set. Make sure to tag me in your projects so I can check them out. Thanks for watching. Have fun painting!